Do you, children of Israel, do y'all trust me to follow me from this place where at least y'all was eating? They kind of mean, but at least, you go down the line. David, you don't qualify to be a king. You short. You probably look cute, but you don't look like no king. You trust me enough to not only accept that call, but act on it when the person who you're supposed to replace is trying to kill you. Do you trust me? Gideon's like, you want me to go fight with what? Do you trust me? So when you go throughout the scripture, don't have time to go through every example, but what you keep saying is that the whole time God has been trying to get us to trust him. So if we do not trust him, it's not possible to satisfy him. He's not satisfied that we're not trusting him. That's why without faith, it's impossible to please or to satisfy God. But again, that's a whole other conversation. I don't want to get too far, let's get back to the lesson. Because I want to focus on that hope piece, because that's not something that we dive into very often. Hope matters to God. Y'all can see that now, right? Because hope is the foundation of faith. Without any object of your hope, there's nothing to apply faith to. Y'all seeing that in the scripture for yourself, right? Okay. All right. So then what about in our own lives? God cannot be satisfied without faith or without hope, without something to have hope in. What about for us? Without hope, we can't satisfy God. God can't be satisfied. Are we any different? Can we really live a satisfactory life without any hope? I would submit that we can't. What's your evidence? Well, first of all, and I won't take you there, but you can go look it up later, right? 1 John 4:17, what does it say? Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness of the day of judgment, because as he is, so are we in this world. So we were made in the image and likeness of God, right? But God can't be satisfied. And I'm not limiting God, I'm telling you what he said. God is not satisfied unless there is hope involved in the process. But we are like God. There's a scripture in the Old Testament that says that ye are lowercase g gods, right? So what does that mean? That the essence of our creation, we are a little duplicate of God's nature. So when you look, a lot of the things and a lot of the characteristics that we have, if you pay attention to scripture long enough, you'll see God with that same characteristic. The way that we parent our children, the same way that God parents wants us to be parented. He makes direct reference to it. He says, you know what? If you can't be corrected, then you are not my son. That's how we feel. Oh, I can't correct you. You can't stay here no more. Where we got that from? We got that from God. So we have these characteristics. So if God can't be satisfied without hope, then we probably can't be either. But, maybe that's not enough. Look at the scripture in 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 13. I'll read it for time's sake. It says, but I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, considering them which are asleep, right? So this is Paul in the context of people that have passed away, right? But look at what he says. He says, I would not have you to be ignorant, considering them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. Well, what does that mean? That means that if he's acknowledging that we're actually expected to be sorrowful, to be sad, and sorrowful is worse than being dissatisfied. All right, you can be dissatisfied and it's like whatever. But here they're saying if you have no hope, you're expected to be sorrowful. If you don't have an object of your hope, in this case in the context of people passing on, if you don't have a hope that you're going to be able to make it to the kingdom and be able to reconnect with your loved ones and all the things that we hold on to, if we don't have that source of hope, we're supposed to be sorrowful. So if we don't have hope, if there's nothing that we have hope in, we can be expected to be a sorrowful person. So Our nature from God shows it. Paul expects it. And what about just regular human observation? Because sometimes we just don't, but that was back then. Okay, well. Think about the people who make the most drastic, destructive decisions. Almost every time you read their manifestos, or you read their letters, or you follow their timelines or their posts or whatever it is, you almost always see that there's a point at which they lose hope. Go back and check the record. People don't just be like, life is good, destroy things. They usually have gotten to a point where they have lost all hope that whatever thing that they cared about is going to occur, and that's when they start becoming self-destructive or destructive of other people and things. But let me show you something new. We also realized more recently that it's not just the people who are destitute and are without. It's also people who you think have everything. Will Smith did an interview, and he was talking about this concept that he dealt with called cliff top. And cliff top is, in the way he explained it, is the same thing as hitting rock bottom. So what is rock bottom to us? Rock bottom is where you ain't got nowhere else to go. You completely stuck. You have no options, right? He said that there's something on the other side of life and success called cliff top. And what is cliff top? Cliff top is where you've gotten every single thing that you could ask for. There's nothing else that you can imagine. You've gotten all the money, you've gotten all the fame, you've had all the sexual interactions, you've had everything you could ask for, and you look around and you still find yourself in a place of despair. He said this is what they deal with. We have evidence that that's what they deal with, right? We've seen people that have everything that you could ask for still be completely unhappy. They look just like somebody who has nothing. They're miserable, they're grumpy, they cannot be satisfied. And some people, even in the midst of having everything they could ever ask for, take on self-destructive behaviors because they have reached a cliff top where they now can't imagine what else they could have hope towards. So even when you have everything, if you don't have hope, you're still in trouble. You still have to have something that you're hoping for. So you still won't be satisfied if you have everything and don't have anything that you're hoping towards. Because humans can't be satisfied without hope, just like God can't be satisfied without hope. So our God-like nature proves it. The scripture expects it. And even when we look at people today, we see it happen. Well, then how is hope lost? Well, there's a bunch of different ways that hope is lost. Just traumatic experiences can cause you to lose hope. Repeated disappointment can cause you to lose hope. On good and bad sides, you thought it was going to be so great. It's not even all that anymore. Loss of purpose or belief, that's what happens to a lot of people. I thought I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to buy my mom a house. I was supposed to do this. I did all those things, so now what? I ain't got no more purpose. A lack of control. To get what I got, I had to give up control of my life. Or I never had control of my life. And I can't handle that anymore. And you can't respond socially or economically. Isolation. You can be around a lot of people and still feel isolated. Negative thought patterns. Personal struggles with self-worth. At the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, all of us have these things that we consider as points of low self-esteem. We all have those insecurities, and if those insecurities are allowed to fester, never being acknowledged, never being dealt with, never being addressed, they can become major roadblocks to our satisfaction and our sources of hope. I don't believe I can go get or do whatever I'm supposed to do. Now I start to feel hopeless. And sometimes just stress and emotional exhaustion. You just like, I'm tired. I can't deal with this no more. And then there's just flat out mental health challenges where there's a block in just the way you process things now for a variety of reasons that people deal with mental health challenges. But all of these things are ways that hope is lost. And we don't know the people that we're dealing with, why they're losing hope, but you see people losing hope around, don't you? People very frustrated, very angry, always willing to throw hands, always willing to, people will drive their car into something in no time. I'm like, are you still paying for this car? And they just don't have any sense of hope that it's any other way to resolve this situation other than to try to destroy whatever's in front of me. So why are we talking about this? Because there are times that all of us have these challenges to our faith because hope starts to wane. Our focus starts to get a little deviated. So you tell me, I don't want to, talk to me. How do you guys deal with times where hope gets a little shaky? Pray? Okay. Anything else? Prayer, meditation, and studying of the word, all right? Let me add some other things to consider. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Right. Correct. Correct. Good. Keep that list in mind, Brother Kim. Mm-hmm. 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 And that was one of those things on the list, right? Just negative thought patterns. And it says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? And so whatever is the primary thing that's always on your heart, eventually it starts coming out of your mouth. And we know that life and death is in the power of the tongue, right? So when you start speaking hopelessness, that's what you start to experience. Let me give you some things to consider when hope is fading. So before we go to the place of hopelessness, first thing to consider is, what are the facts of the situation? And it's funny that we're talking about faith, but yet we're talking about facts. I'll tell you why. In cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a phrase that says, hopelessness is a feeling, and feelings are not facts. And if y'all remember, Pastor's version of this is, get out your feelings. Y'all heard him say that before, right? Well, why is that a necessary statement? Well, it's because quite often we get into our feelings without knowing all the facts. Whereas if we had all the facts, we would have never gotten into our feelings, and we would have never ended up in a place of hopelessness. Give you an example. So you at work, right? And your boss comes to you and starts saying, I need you to take on this extra job. I need you to take on this extra project. I need you to do this. I need you to do that, all right? Well, your natural feelings are going to say, well, I ain't the one or the two because I ain't getting paid for this, am I? And you start to feel resentment towards that boss because you're like, oh, they think that I am their servant now. And you want to move on, you want to quit, but you're like, I can't quit because I don't have anything else lined up that's going to pay me what they're paying me now. That leaves you in a place of hopelessness. Hopelessness sets in. So based on just your feelings of the situation, you get to a point of hopelessness really quick. But watch this. How different is your response if you find out, well, the real reason that they started to put the boss started to put all these extra assignments on you or these extra tasks on you is because they were actually training their replacement. And they didn't want to say that out loud to anybody because they were still making sure that their exit strategy was straight. When you finally find that out, you're like, oh, wait, oh, they're trying to promote me. Now you feel different about those job responsibilities. You still wish that they had told you, but you even go back and say, okay, I get it now. And so your feelings about the situation came from the reality that you didn't have all the facts. So it's important that before we get too deep into a situation, we try as best as we can to get as many facts as we can. Even in this situation here, you didn't have all the facts. But that should always be your effort and your goal. Does Scripture support that? Proverbs 4:7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. So before we start deciding, oh, this is a hopeless situation, the thing that we're trying to do ain't never gonna happen, we need to be considering the facts, because those facts will prevent us from going into that deep, dark place. Does that make sense? Second thing to consider, is this a permanent situation? Or is there some definite endpoint? A lot of times we respond to temporary situations as if they're permanent. And so then we give a permanent response to a temporary situation and we can't undo it. Right now, you know, a lot of us are raising children. I got 3 children that are all over the place, right? Caleb had me out 6 days a week. 6 days a week. Andrew's all over the place. Teresa's doing her thing. She got me out. We about to celebrate my birthday tomorrow at her award ceremony and induction. Happy birthday to me. So I could, if I chose to, get into a place of, well, what about me? When am I going to get to live my life? Oh, I feel hopeless. I'm never going to get out of this. I'm never going to be able to be my own man. But then you stop and you think about it. It's like, you know what? No matter what happens, no matter how busy we are right now, there is a date certain at which all this is going to be over.